Hi, Mariana with Fresh Pair of Eyes. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So, one of my favorite scenes from this season, and I feel like this is the first time we see Cross being very vulnerable, is when he calls into the radio station on him and his wife's anniversary, and he's just very vulnerable and open with that radio host. Why was that scene important, and why was he so open with that radio host?
I mean, that is actually what it is. It's who does he tell the whole truth to? He's still at that point not comfortable coming forward with the whole truth about his emotional vulnerability to the people closest to him. So he calls in and spills it to a stranger. And he actually doesn't even use his real name in that scene. And I think that that's something that I can relate to. And I think a lot of people can relate to. And I know it's kind of sad when you think about it because, the folks who are going to be the most supportive of you and care the most about you, sometimes you don't actually feel comfortable sharing your deepest, darkest fears with or pains with. And I wanted to show that for Alex Cross because you're seeing him on a journey of trying to process this grief, and he hasn't gotten to the point where he can talk to his loved ones about it.
Yeah. There's a scene at the dinner table where there's a lot of Black people talking about police funding, Black Lives Matter, and it seems as if they have all the same goal, but completely different points of views on how to reach it. Why was that scene important? And definitely, even though they have the same background, they have completely different points of views on how to get there.
I really knew that we couldn't do a story about a black detective in DC and not, and then tiptoe around the fact that there is a very tense relationship sometimes between law enforcement and the black community. But I also knew that I didn't want to be preaching. I wanted to have it built in organically. And so I needed to have characters in this show that had different POVs and to have the conversation from their POVs. So let them sort of lead this conversation. And so that dinner party became, the best vehicle for that to happen. And it actually gives us a chance to highlight some of the contradictions. So one of them being you have Alex Cross, who is committed to his community, but he's actually a cop who sometimes is pointed at his community. And then you have other folks who aren't really in the mix, but are watching things in the news and can draw certain conclusions and make certain statements that maybe aren't fully informed. And so we wanted to play all of that. I actually think that audiences sometimes get underestimated because, you know, audiences, I think, have an appetite for tough subject matter and controversial subject matter as long as you're not preaching and not lying. And so I wanted to be able to build this into the fabric. It's a reality of our life, and but we got to treat it just like that, a reality. The same thing as if it was hot outside, people sweat.
Yeah, speaking of building something within the fabric, while the show isn't shot in DC, DC still feels like such a character. They're eating at Ben's Chili Bowl. It definitely feels like a character of the show. Why did you want that to be a character?
Um, Well, first of all, when I knew it was, I know I'm doing a show in DC and I start, I'm always going to do a deep dive into wherever the show is set because I think the more authentic you get, the more specific you get, the better the story gets. You can actually put anchor points in really specific details and it makes your whole show better. So now you're talking about DC and I'm knowing that the depictions of DC don't always show DC. They show the Capitol buildings and the movers and the shakers, but they don't always show the bedrock of DC, which is this incredibly vibrant, diverse community that has a huge legacy of a black community, but also is all the colors walking around. And so I really wanted to reflect that. And so, we went in, we did our research, and we got to know the city. And we also had the advantage of having a producer who was from DC, Umar White. And when we were writing the scripts, I would always give him a version towards the end and say, "Can you do your DC pass?" And he would give me notes talking about, "Oh, that's not how somebody from DC would say that." Or, "Oh, you picked this restaurant, but in DC, if they were going to have that type of meeting, it would be this one."
Mhm.
And those are small things, but it made a big difference.
For sure. Definitely, when you see things about a show, especially if it's a show where it's a place you're from, you're like, they couldn't get there that quickly. So I definitely love those.
Good point. That's a great point. Even that.
Yes, those touches of details. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Congrats on season 2 already. And I'll
Thank
talk to
you.
you about that and other projects soon.
I look forward to it. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.